All right, so I've just come back from the gym and I really thought that I had this whole podcast sort of sorted in my mind, but I'd been procrastinating recording it because I thought I was going to write a script and basically just read from that and learn it off by heart so that I didn't make myself out to be an absolute dickhead not knowing what I was going to say. But I actually come to the realization that if I'm writing it, it's actually not me and it's not the most authentic version of me that you guys deserve. So welcome to my first episode of Meetings and Meltdowns. This is going to be your new favorite podcast that is exposing the toxic workplace culture. And we're going to talk about it. I'm not going to stay quiet anymore because I'm actually quite sick and fucking tired of, oh, but it's normal. No, the fuck it's not. It's absolutely not. And there's really no excuse for toxicity in the workplace. But I think there's really a place for what my mission is. And for me, this podcast and my Instagram, my Facebook pages are literally to make you feel like you are not alone. I know firsthand how it feels to be isolated in a toxic workplace and not know whether other people go through the same thing or whether they're just overthinking it or whether they're the problem. And it's really upsetting to me because I've just escaped that. I've quit my job and I'm really glad I've left, but I'm really disappointed that I got to the point that I felt like I physically needed to for my own emotional and mental well-being. This is going to be completely authentic from me. You know, I'm going to try and not be boring. But I understand, this is not going to be for everybody. It may bring up past traumas that you've experienced in a workplace, and I do apologize for that. But at the same time, if you've gone through it, I feel like there's going to be so many other people that have gone through it as well, and it's important to talk about it. But yeah, so this is completely out of my fucking depth, and I am totally fucking terrified. And I'm like shaking just sitting here, even though it's like nobody's even watching me, but it's so far in my depth that I actually felt stupid. I really didn't see that there'd be a value to doing this, but I've got feedback from people that are really important to me that aren't necessarily direct relationships in my life, but they've looked at me and said, holy fucking shit, like that is amazing. And there is such a need for that because people don't talk about it enough because they're silenced. You're not encouraged to talk about it. It's just keep your mouth shut because you're the problem. But you're not. And I'm here to remind you of that. So anyway, yeah, welcome to my podcast. I really don't know where to start apart from telling you my story. I have been through some shit, as have many people, but my story is going to be unique. There might be bits that you can relate to because you've been through similar things, but at the end of the day, this is my experience and no one's going to take that away from me. I've actually been really scared to talk about it for a long time because I really thought that it was me that was the problem and that I was just a drama queen. I might be, but not when it comes to a toxic workplace. So my earliest experience with a toxic workplace started quite literally in the brink of COVID when it was completely running rampant through, I'm based in Queensland in Australia, and my earliest experience was when COVID was huge and it started creating lockdowns, and I was only a casual at the time, but I was working full-time hours. In Australia, you can work as a casual for up to like 37 and a half hours without officially working the full-time hours and not being a full-time employee. Don't quote me, but that's what it was at the time. Anyway, so COVID became huge and we'd been told at this workplace that, you know what, no, like, we're all good. We've got heaps of work. We're good for now, whatever. I thought, great, cool, no worries. I had mentally prepared myself for a reduction of hours only because of the fact that, with COVID, I had people around me that they had like reduced hours as casuals or they were working from home and stuff like that. So I'd already mentally prepared myself for a reduction, but it only took one meeting that basically told us casuals that we were being stood down effective immediately until further notice. That was scary, obviously, and it would be for anybody. But thankfully, I didn't have many expenses, I was still living at home, whatever. So I was still a little old teen, relatively new to like the Monday to Friday gig. I'd been working casually, obviously through school, and I was studying, dropped out of uni, whatever. But I was still okay enough to be able to, not work for a little bit. It took a couple of weeks and I was like, haven't heard anything, but we're out of lockdown. So I gave them a call, but there was no update. So I thought, it's fine. Like, I'm still on the books. They'll call me when they're ready for me to come back. And it took about 2 months before I actually was like, hello, what the fuck? Where's my call? Like, what are we doing? Hello. And I called them and, just asked, I said, I'm keen to come back to work. I've noticed all the other casuals have actually returned and I'm pretty much the only one that hasn't gone back. Do you have a reason for that? And what I was told broke my fucking heart. Like, I actually was so shocked. Before I tell you, I want to let you know that it was a warehouse job. It was very physically demanding, lifting heavy things, it's basically a labourer's job in a warehouse. It was actually quite good. I loved the people. They were great. I'd never had an issue with the physical side of it. I was, happy to lift the heavy shit, whatever. But on that phone call, I was told that being a female, I was not able to contribute to the business needs as much as the men could. What? What the fuck is that? What do you mean, being a female? I was like, pardon? You want to say that again? Like, remind me what you've just fucking said to me. Like, that makes no sense. And they're like, it's nothing personal. Sounds pretty fucking personal to me, but all right. You know what? If that's how you're going to think about me, like, no problem. I don't want to work for you anyway. All good. They sent me my my exit certificate. So it's basically like to say that you're no longer working for that employer. And did they put on the separation certificate that I was let go because I was a female? No. It was stated that I was not returning to that workplace because of a loss of work due to COVID. Fuck off. Don't lie. Why are we lying? You just want to protect your ass and you didn't put anything in fucking writing, so I couldn't take you to fucking Fair Work. So that was the first. That was pretty fucking brutal. I was actually out of work for 6 months after that. I kind of needed to recover a little bit because I was traumatized. I was like, what do you mean, you're female? I was like, is that really a problem? But it actually wasn't the problem, I've come to realise that was just sexism at its finest. That's fine. It was personal, good for them, whatever. But yeah, it took me 6 months to get another job and I'd actually landed a traineeship and that meant that I could complete a Certificate 3 in business while I was employed by a host employer. And this workplace was actually quite good up until they changed my team. So I had a manager up until that point that he was really good. He was actually quite amazing. I learned a lot from him and it was really helpful when I looked to move on because I explained to him like what was going on. And for me to have that support from him was really amazing and I'm very grateful for that. But when I got changed teams, I was the only one based in Queensland. So I was actually quite isolated and that provided a lot of insecurities because it was they all get to see each other. So if they have any questions, they're all going to have like a team meeting and I was left out. My manager that I ended up having didn't, explain the things that got changed. Like part of my role changed and there was no clarity, there was no stability, no structure. But I was expected to still complete the workload. So I really don't understand how someone was supposed to stay in that kind of role the way I did. I stayed for, I think it was an extra 6 months after that to try and, push through it because I didn't want to just go, it's a rocky start because I've changed teams, like that's not my style. But it got to the point where I physically could not do it anymore. Like it actually drained the living shit out of me. But anyway, so I ended up moving on only because I knew that it was never going to get better. 6 months, like that's half a year to get your shit together basically and do better, but there was no element of that. It was never going to change. So I saw another opportunity, and the opportunity that I then got ended up being worse than where I'd just come from. I didn't think that was going to be possible. But the next role, the one that I left to go to the new opportunity, it actually started pretty good, like the last job. Great, no problem. So I was already on the defense, kind of thinking that I needed to protect myself in the event that something actually happened. I just wish I'd seen the signs a shitload earlier than I had, because in this role, I reached breaking point and I quit without a job to go to because I physically was like, no, I'm not doing this anymore. And we're going to get to why, and I'm going to run you through the series of events, most of them. I'm not going to go through all of them because they actually really fucking sucked. But anyway, yeah, so this role started off really, really good. It was literally very similar to my last role, but it was just like more of a step up. So I was like, yay, go me, a little pat on the back. Great, we did fantastic. We got a new fucking opportunity. Cool. But I hadn't even finished probation before my manager quit. I was like, oh shit, okay. The ops manager called me before my manager had an opportunity to call me to let me know that she'd resigned. First of all, that's not your place to fucking tell me. Let her tell me first. God damn. At the time, I didn't know why she'd left, and it took me like 2 years to realize why she'd left, and I really fucking hope that she found better, because she deserves better. She was a great human being. Really grateful for the opportunity I had to work with her for a small amount of time. But after she'd left, I was then expected to sort of do her job and my job without the title of being a manager. Which, for a little bit, I was like, yeah, that's fine. Like I'm happy to try and help where I can with the shortfall, obviously being that everything still needs to get done. But I had a meeting with the ops manager and I was like, oh, like I'm happy to take on the extra work. Can we review like my pay? Because I kind of want to be, paid a little bit extra if I'm doing extra work. That's kind of how things should work. And it was the constant lip service. It was, oh yeah. We'll look at it. We'll see. We'll review your job description to see if anything extra you're doing isn't in the job description. In my job description, there was like a little thing that basically said, and any other tasks related to this role that required to be completed. So I feel like it literally was just like, oh, well, the manager's job description could fit in that little, that little blurb in that spot. So I was like, oh, okay, cool. Anyway, so I did push for it again. Like I left it for about 5 months or something, and then reviewed it and asked again. And it was just, oh, yeah, we'll get to it. So it was just like, that was the first red flag. I was like, okay, you really pushing me away. So I felt like I wasn't taken seriously. They ended up hiring another manager. And just before that, I'd actually asked whether the business could support me doing a diploma in like the relevant field of work that I was in, because I would have really liked to have done like that management role. I'd seen what my manager was doing and it was quite interesting to me. So I'd asked about it. And it was basically, no, your priority should be your job, not trying to study. And I was like, okay, no problem. Like, that's cool, maybe once I know my role a bit better. I'd been here for like over 6 months at that point, maybe even like a year or something. So maybe they just think because I'm still new, like I still need to learn things. Fine, no problem. I can deal with that. That's okay. Like I'm all for that, no problem. But was I really? Like, who was I kidding? Who was I kidding? Why did I let them tell me that? Why did I let them sort of put me down like that? Like, that's actually not nice. Like, I was putting out my fucking work really hard. Like, I was doing well, building relationships, doing everything that I could, with limited education, limited stability, and again, limited structure. And I didn't have much mentorship from the ops manager, who was then technically my manager because I didn't have a manager at the time. So I'd basically taught myself a lot of what I knew with like the procedures that had physically been printed out, that I had a huge binder book of all the procedures just so that I knew what I was doing. The new manager came on board, and usually when your manager comes on board, you'd meet them like on their first day, right? Because you're reporting to them, you'd be introduced to them because you're about to be reporting to them. it took me a week to meet my new manager. And at first I was like, oh, you know, that's fine. But I'd found out that the rest of my team, like the operational team, had met my new manager before I did because they had a team meeting via Microsoft Teams and I wasn't involved. Make it make sense. What? What the fuck does that mean? For context, my team was split into like a couple of locations. So we had some based in Queensland and some based in South Australia. My manager was actually based in South Australia. And that meant that they were either half an hour in front or half an hour behind. So there's not like this whole, oh, but they're an hour or 2 hours. No, there was literally none of that. There was no actual excuse to have not met my manager for over a week. But eventually I ended up meeting him and he was quite good to start with, you know, really good to talk to, really easy to talk to. But then came the downfall of him being pulled from pillar to post by his manager. So I basically got neglected by my own manager, and I'm not entirely blaming him, but at the same time, when you get told that you got a new manager, you kind of expect to have a manager to go to. But I found that I was dealing with a lot of things by myself, or if I tried to raise points or ask questions, it was always, oh, we'll come back to it. Oh, yeah, we'll circle back. Oh, book a meeting for next week and we'll go over it. And 1 minute, the meeting is booked and it's there and I'm ready with everything that I need. I've got it all written down and got my pen ready so I can, write down notes and whatever. And the next minute, he's declined and cancelled the meeting because, oh, I'm too busy. What? At what point do you give up because you're trying to get answers from your manager that is supposed to be managing you and be the person that you escalate things to, only to be told that, yeah, I'll call you later, or, oh, we'll book another time, but that never happens? Like, how do you navigate that? How are you supposed to navigate it? In the minimal times I managed to get a hold of him, I did say, I'm really struggling because I can't get a hold of you. I need you to be more available, and it's really creating a hindrance on my work because by the time I eventually do get to talk to you, the small list that could have been sorted out in that meeting that you declined, I've then multiplied it because I didn't get the opportunity to actually bring it up with you because you've declined the meeting. So it got to a point where the workload became stressful because I had no support. And it really shocked me in this role. So obviously I had all of that. I couldn't get a hold of him. I was, declined meetings, extra workload. I ended up being put on a performance improvement plan. Despite all of my efforts to do my job to the best of my ability with the little resources and support I had, and I was on it for 9 months. And I stayed thinking, you know what, it's fine. I'm working hard. We're going to get off it, no problem. And I kept doing what I was doing, if not more, to try and improve on the things that they had said to me needed improvement, So I would work late. I would start early. I'd bring my laptop home. I worked from home on a Tuesday and a Thursday, but being put on the improvement plan, I actually had that revoked. They took it off me saying you need to be in the office on Tuesdays and Thursdays so that you've got more support when you're in the office. The rest of my team worked from home Tuesday, Thursdays. So I was more isolated in the office than I was working at home where I could have just stayed on late and do things in my time to do extra. But I had that revoked. So not only did they isolate me even more, but it was a 9-month improvement plan. And it actually felt like they'd already made that decision by the time they'd put me on the improvement plan. Despite me raising concerns, it felt like I was being punished for not being able to do the things I was trying to raise with my manager. So 9 months of that, of continuously trying my ass off to come off it, to, fix things, do better. And there were very minimal meetings while I was on this improvement plan. And I'm quite sure when someone's on an improvement plan, it means having frequent meetings with them. But the same problem kept happening despite being on the improvement plan. It would still be, oh, I'll call you later. I can't meet this time. I've got to do this, or I'm too busy, or can we go over it at a different time? So I was really just set up to fail. if I'm honest. And I should have known that it was not going to get better. But being the person that I am, I always want to try and make sure that everything gets done, that I perform to the best of my ability. So not only was the improvement plan a real shock to me, I cried about it. I really did. I fucking sobbed. I was like, oh my God, I am so shit at my job that I'm on an improvement plan. Breaks my fucking heart. Like, I actually don't understand how I put myself in that situation. I ended up having a meeting with my manager, and lo and behold, someone from HR was there. It was a disciplinary meeting, and I wasn't even offered a support person. That was the kicker. I was blindsided, and in this meeting, I was issued a show cause letter. Basically, for those who don't know, a show cause letter is a please explain and tell us why you should keep your job. And how am I supposed to write a letter and tell them why I should keep my job when it already felt like they didn't want me to keep my job anyway? At the time prior to this meeting with HR, there was a new system being implemented, and everybody around me was involved in the training. They were getting the required access for them to continue to do their jobs. I was involved in nothing. Didn't have any logins, didn't have any permissions, didn't have the access I needed to do my job in the new system. They'd already made that decision that they were going to terminate my employment. They just wanted enough documentation to be able to protect themselves. You know what fucking pisses me off about this situation is that this improvement plan, not like a month before, I had my work from home reinstated. I had everything bar one subject ticked off, completed, cleared, told that I was doing great. And I was blindsided with a fucking show cause letter, despite my numerous efforts, thinking that I had done enough and I was gonna come off the improvement plan. I quit. I was not gonna fucking beg for my job. I was not gonna stoop to that level and be, oh, please let me keep my job. Fuck no. You didn't even have the fucking respect for me to try and come off it in the first place. You didn't even have the respect for me to try and not be on it in the fucking first place. I was trying to raise concerns. I was trying to do my fucking job, and I was met with nothing. I was trying to meet them more than fucking halfway, and they couldn't even meet me in a fucking puddle while I'm swimming across the fucking ocean for them. No fucking way was I gonna be fucking writing them a please let me keep my job. Absolutely not. So came time to give them my letter of my show cause, by the X amount of time. I think it was like 5 p.m. the next day or something. It was a resignation. I will never return to that place again. I didn't even see out my fucking notice period. So here's my resignation. And they went, okay, cool. You can finish immediately. We'll pay you out your 2 weeks. Great. Didn't want to show my face there anyway. No fucking problem. That one sucked. But my most recent one is even worse. I didn't even know that was possible, but it's worse. It took 2 weeks and I managed to actually land another job, which I was really grateful for. It was a completely new field. I actually moved into HR, which I think has really now shaped me into such a strong-minded person, and I know what I'm looking for when I go to my next job. I know the red flags to look out for from all of my jobs. I now know what psychosocial hazards are. If you don't know what psychosocial hazards are, either do your research. Otherwise, I'm thinking I might actually make another podcast about it, and I might try and find me some little friends that know a lot more about it than I do. But psychosocial hazards are a real, they are probably one of the worst things in a workplace at the moment, and they are not promoted enough, and we need more education on it. So if you're not sure what they are, then definitely go and do some research before I release a podcast about it. But yeah, anyway, so I now know about psychosocial hazards. I know what the red flags are. I know how horrible some people are treated. Working in the space of HR has never broken my heart more than anything I've actually worked through. My time in the HR role resulted in me seeing more people leaving the business than people starting in the business. People just wanted to keep getting out and keep leaving. That's a red fucking flag. And I was like, nah, it can't be that bad. But it actually was. I started normalizing it for a little bit because I thought, oh, you know, like it's a different kind of role, so I'm going to be expecting different things. It's not going to be the same as the others. But the principles are still the same. If you don't have respect for people and you treat them like another number, they're going to leave. If you just treat them like shit, they're going to leave. If they raise concerns and they are met with nothing, they're going to leave. The biggest thing for me, and the thing that eventually broke me, was more than one thing. It actually all piled up into this huge fucking like really heavy package that I just couldn't carry anymore. And even my husband couldn't carry it with me. Like that shit was too heavy for two of us to fucking carry it. And it was at that point that my husband looks at me and he goes, babe, you're fucking done. I'm not telling you what to do. I will never tell you what to do, but I'm telling you that you're done. Like we're not doing this anymore and you need to get the fuck out. So I did, I resigned and haven't gone back and I've never been happier. I'm actually doing the shit that I want to do. I go to gym every second day or every day, depending on how I feel. I have energy to go and do the shit that I want to do. I'm happier in life. I wake up refreshed. I wake up feeling motivated. I really want to make this content for you guys and actually remind you that you are worth so much fucking more than a workplace makes you feel. But anyway, so this most recent workplace, it got to a point where my office, I had my back to the door, which is usually not a problem. I actually really don't mind. I'm not doing anything wrong. So I never, I'm never like, oh, what if someone sees me? Like, I actually don't fucking care. Like sitting to my back towards the door, no problem, all good. But I would hold my breath every fucking time I heard specific footsteps running down the hallway, and I'd be hoping, praying, and crossing my fingers and fucking toes, hoping that they're not going to stop in my office and yell at either me, the people around me, or my team. I received numerous comments that refer to me as just A, insinuating that I am beneath other people. Funny how I had a lower position than some of my colleagues, yet I still managed to pick up the slack on some of their fucking work. How can you refer to someone as just A? They're not just A. They are more than just an employee. They're a fucking human being. Stop being so degrading. All right? It's not fucking hard. But the thing that really got to me is that despite trying to set boundaries and saying that I have too much workload, the mental capacity is too much, you're asking too much of me, the boundary was disrespected. I still had shit tons thrown at me and gone, we need this, or this person's starting next week, but we're going to give you like 4 days notice and we're not actually going to involve you and let you know that we've offered them a contract or offered them a role, but we're expecting you to onboard them next week. But, you're still going to have to do all this other work on the side despite starting somebody being such a hefty task. I'm sorry, do you see a clone of me? Like, are there two of me? Because what you're asking of me is actually fucking ridiculous. When people leave, which a lot of them did, I was actually privileged that some of them had asked for me personally to do exit interviews. It didn't matter how many exit interviews I did, the feedback was always the same. Did anything change? Fuck no. All you'd hear Is the management talking shit about current and ex-employees behind their back? That's fucking horrendous. That is disgusting, and it is disrespectful. And I don't stand for that. And I feel like for me to physically stay in that role would be to actually support this poor business practice. And I really am not here for that. So, I physically was not going to keep running myself into the ground day in, day out and feeling as miserable as I did to go to a workplace that I felt so undervalued. The thing that made me feel the most undervalued was, for those of you that know me, I was accepted into university to start studying psychology back in, I think it was January. But around that time, I'd actually had a conversation with the deputy, and they'd asked if I would stay within the HR space here if they supported me doing a human resources course. Of course, I thought, oh my God, yay, exciting. Like they've seen my worth, they see my value, they want to support me in getting a qualification, because I'm not formally qualified in HR, but the opportunity, I was actually very lucky that because of my previous work experience, I foot the bill for that role. But anyway, so they asked if I wanted to stay within the HR space and they would support me doing a HR course. Absolutely, great. So with knowing that, I stupidly withdrew from my psychology course. Yep, I know. We're not going there. We're going to talk about it, but right now, just be disgusted with me because I'm fucking pissed off at myself. And so I'd withdrawn from the psychology course, and the HR course also fell through. I love that for me. So now I have no qualification in HR, and I'm now not studying psychology. So that definitely threw a spanner in the works, and I felt so fucking mad. I was so pissed that I had trusted the word of someone I thought valued me, and I threw away an opportunity that I worked hard to get into university for. Anyway, so that is a pretty broad, scope on what I've been through. Obviously, I wasn't going to bore you with all the nitty-gritty details, but they're the main sort of things that they really fucked me up. And to have been subject to all of that, I know for a fact that there's other people who have been through the same thing. So I'm not going to discredit anybody's story. Mine is unique. So you might resonate with bits and pieces, but you might not. So as a whole, the thing that a lot of those toxic workplaces had was a lack of accountability and poor management. So I know what I'm looking for in the future, but things like micromanaging is so damaging. A micromanager, basically, they don't have trust in their team to the point that they feel like they have to overshadow everything. They don't trust you to do your job by yourself. You're fucking capable. You can do it. You don't need to be fucking micromanaged. Ew, yuck. Imagine breathing the same air as your manager all the time because they're looking over your fucking shoulder. Nah, micromanaging, shit. There are so many toxic elements of workplaces, and that's where I come in. So I feel like I really found something that I'm really passionate about, and I know that there are other people that will resonate with a lot of this. So Meetings and Meltdowns has been created off the back of surviving these toxic workplaces. And for me, my ultimate goal is to just remind even just one person that they are worth so much more than the toxic underbelly of corporate, of, blue collar, or, they're worth better than anything they are dealt with, I cannot stress enough that your workplace has no right to define your worth as a human being. Your toxic workplace can affect your mental health, your emotional well-being. It can affect things even as far as your personal relationships, because any insecurities that are manifested in a toxic workplace can transition into insecurities outside of work. So any of those things are really important, and we're going to talk about it. because it's not talked about enough. And I actually am so sick and fucking tired of thinking I can't talk about it. I'm going to. If you don't like me, I don't care. Whatever. It's not my problem. This sounds like an issue, not an ish me. It's literally one of my most favorite things one of my best mates says in my whole life. It's so great. But I swear we are going to debunk so much of this shit, and there's going to be so many people that get pissed off. And you know why? Because they're being called out. They don't like being called out. They don't want to take accountability. They'd rather blame somebody else. Sound familiar? That's why we're here. But ultimately, this whole thing has happened because of some fucking wacky manifesto shit that happened. People that know me know that I am not religious. I'm not spiritual. But what happened really fucking shocked me to my core. I was sitting doom scrolling. I was feeling sorry for myself. I'd quit my job. So sad. But I'd seen, I'm going to call them a flash forward. I'd seen it through my own eyes, but from a future me. Shocking. Shocking. What the fuck? I'd seen it all. The podcast, the Instagram, the Facebook, the community that it brought together because we can all fucking relate. It's all the same fucking shit. And it just was there. And I snapped back to reality because I was like, oh my God, stop daydreaming. But I wasn't. I saw it. My heart fucking felt it. It was sad that it didn't exist. So I knew, I was like, we fucking got this. We're doing it. This is where we're traveling. This is the way we're going to do it. And this is when Meetings and Meltdowns was produced, because it's not always a meltdown, but it seems to always be fucking meetings. Sick of it. But honestly, everyone deserves so much better. That's why we're here. We're going to talk about it. And this podcast is not your usual, it's not always going to be a happy, it's not always going to be a sad, it might be fucking funny. We're going to do some reactions. I want you to submit to me, your most horrific fucking stories, and I'm going to react to that shit. I might laugh because it's so fucking bad. If you don't laugh, you're going to cry. But I want to talk about it. I'm so passionate about this that I actually can't even explain it. I wish I could just transfer my feelings about this to you, because I am so fucking passionate and I want to do this, and I want you guys to be involved, and I want you to know that we are so much better than the way our workplace makes us feel. I promise. But anyway, that is what Meetings and Meltdowns is for. We're going to talk about it. We don't give a fuck about their fucking opinions. It's fine. If they don't like it, they can fuck off. Okay? All right. But that is me. I am so glad you're here. I'm grateful for the support, and I can't wait to keep doing this with you guys, because this is going to be absolutely fucking fantastic. Thanks.